So heading into 2023, SDY has been replaced by NPL as the permanent 5th player for NAVI. So today I'm going to be talking about the move, but also NAVI as a whole moving forward into 2023. So first of all, let's talk about SDY, the player that is being removed to make space for NPL. The interesting thing about SDY is that he was never really intended to be the permanent 5th player for NAVI, and in my opinion, he actually posted pretty good numbers. He played a role which typically wouldn't expect high fragging from, and he did a pretty good job at it. My main problem with SDY is that he never really got better, and while NAVI was doing well early in the year, SDY was actually a pretty decent player, and people thought that, maybe they should just bring him on as the 5th player. He seems to be doing a good job. But once other teams started getting a lot better and NAVI's overall level dropped, SDY seemed to get a lot worse and never really recovered to the decent level that he was showing early in the year. And honestly, most of NAVI also fell off except for maybe Simple. But even Simple's level decreased a little bit, I would say. So SDY is a decent player who could be a good player on a top 20 to top 15 team. But I also think that he probably wasn't at a good enough level to really be in the NAVI starting lineup, which, NAVI is an org that is expected to win trophies, expected to do really well, go really, really deep in tournaments. And I don't think SDY quite lived up to that potential. You could see that he made many more mistakes than other players on the team, especially compared to players like Electronic and Perfecto, who do a great job at making minimal mistakes. Also, considering that SDY is technically a more experienced player at the top level, it makes a lot of sense for NAVI to kind of go searching for someone else, as SDY didn't really show much improvement after a long period of time, meaning that it might be more difficult to teach him more systems, teach him stuff that might change the way he plays a bit more. So let's head over to the replacement, which is NPL. So NPL has been playing on the NAVI junior team for close to a year now and moving up to the main lineup after that period of time. During his time on NAVI junior, he was pretty much the second best player on the team behind Headtrick, and I'll also be making a video on Headtrick joining NIP soon, so look out for that one. But going back to NPL, watching some of his games on NAVI Junior, it's clear that he was more treated as a bit of a star player. He took much better roles on CT side and T side where he could kind of showcase his mechanical ability a bit more, which I think is actually one of his strong suits. So now NPL compared to NAVI Junior to the real NAVI lineup, you can see that his roles were actually not too different. On Mirage CT side, for instance, he plays Connector, which is where he played on NAVI Junior. But on T side, he's become more of the hard entry player. He's the first player running in almost every single round. And this is quite different to how he played on NAVI Junior, where he was probably the second or third player in, kind of trading the frag, getting the kills on the team. But I think it does kind of make sense considering he's the newest player on the team. A lot of really strong mechanical players on NAVI that could probably outshoot him. When you have Bit, Simple, and Electronic on your team, it's probably pretty hard to justify being the second or third guy in, right? When watching these games, I think NPL struggled quite a bit actually on the T side. And I think it makes sense, you're running in as kind of the sacrificial lamb for the rest of the NAVI team to clean up. But I think that it's a role that you can kind of get better at over time. And honestly, the good thing about NPL is that he's very young and Blade can kind of mold him into the type of player that he wants him to be. And this, in my opinion, is the main difference between NPL and SDY. NAVI is trading an experienced player in SDY with a known ceiling for a young and up-and-coming player who, has uncapped potential, which Blade can potentially tap into. So overall, when we're speaking about the one-for-one trade of players, the NAVI roster hasn't really changed that much in terms of levels of players. The main thing that we have to talk about, and the number one thing holding NAVI back at the moment, is the IGL role, and the system that NAVI is playing behind it. So let me explain. The NAVI system relies a lot on having strong individual players, which makes sense because NAVI has some of the best players in the entire world. But the problem is that consistency becomes an issue when the NAVI players are not in good form. And we saw this throughout the entire year where NAVI finished below top 4 for most of their events in 2022. Which, on paper doesn't sound too bad. Oh, boo-hoo, you got below top 4, right? But many of these losses are to teams like Furia, Vitality, G2, NiP, Liquid. These are teams that NAVI would normally be able to beat. And they're good teams, don't get me wrong. But considering the year that NAVI had in 2021, where they felt almost untouchable, consistently placing top 4 in basically every tournament, we have to really look at Blade's system and Electronic as the IGL. I think it's safe to say that, Electronic as the IGL has not really panned out the way that NAVI wanted. In the beginning, it actually looked kind of promising, but in recent times, NAVI look like they lose their way in a lot of rounds especially in the default kind of round. The Navi T-side default requires players to consistently take map control on their own, and this leaves a lot of responsibility on the players individually. Now the problem is that since Electronic took over as IGL, his T-side stats are really bad, and they've dropped immensely. He's consistently one of Navi's worst players in terms of stats on the T-side right now. And now to be fair, this actually completely flips on the CT side, where Electronic is actually one of the best players for Navi. But from this example, we can kind of see that it's clear that Electronic as a player is much better when he can only think about himself, when he only has to think about what he is doing. When he has to think about the team as well, I think that he can't really handle it. He really struggles to keep up his own individual performance when he has to think about the team as a whole. And this is honestly the biggest problem. Electronic is a crucial part of Navi's T-side, and when he can't put up numbers on the T-side, it creates a massive issue. Now, the solution is actually unclear. There is a pretty big lack of IGLs in the CIS region, and the IGLs which are good, that are proven to be pretty good, are actually locked up behind massive contracts. So Navi has limited options. The problem with the IGL role is that you kind of need a player that is more experienced, that is very good at understanding the game, how it works. And this is something that comes with experience at the top level. No academy player is really going to successfully fill this role. So to me, it seems like a bit of a waste of time to bring NPL in as the 5th player. It doesn't really fix any of the issues that Navi has been struggling with for most of the year. And I think that unless Electronic is able to really level up his T-side performance, it feels like it would almost be better to try and build one of the other Navi players as the IGL. I think that Perfecto could honestly be a pretty good option, and you know, this would obviously drastically improve the fragging from Navi in terms of Electronic and Simple, but I think that the NPL to Navi move is at best a side grade, an average move that really doesn't do anything. It's just kind of like slotting in another SDY, but they have different names. Like, it's 3 letters, they just swap them around and put him back in the server. So I hope that Navi are able to figure it out, but right now I don't really see how they can kind of change everything that they've been doing thus far, but I guess we'll see when the season rolls around. Regardless, if you enjoyed the content, let me know by leaving a like on the video and subscribe for more content like this. Peace out.